The first piece in this series of videos on the creation of each track from the Mentors project is Intentionality, and this is a piece that I dedicated to Toshiko Akiyoshi. She was one of the pioneering women in the realm of big band writing. She had a legendary big band with Lew Tabackin in the 70s and 80s, and they performed challenging and really adventurous arrangements. Let's see, I was 17 years old in the summer 1979 when I first met her. I'd been given a rare opportunity to participate in a summer music workshop. It was called Centrum, and it was in Port Townsend, Washington, where I grew up, and it was a 2-week workshop. And Toshiko was slated to be the artist in residence. For whatever reason, 3 people signed up for the workshop. It was like a jazz composition arranging workshop, and because of that, all 3 of us got like a ton of one-on-one time with her, which was really special. And one of my most vivid memories, it was a day during that workshop where she had said, "It's a nice day, let's go outside and bring your scores." And so we were sitting around a picnic table. She was reviewing the music that we had been developing over the course of that 2-week workshop to have a performance at the end on the final week. And she was looking through my big band score and pointed to a couple of bars within the sax section of what I'd written and asked me, "Why did you write this?" And like a typical teenager, I was giving a typical response where I just said, "I don't know." And she's like, No, why did you write this right here, this particular idea?" And I thought about it for a couple seconds and said, "Because I like it." And her reply to that was, "Good enough." She followed up with that there has to be a reason why something goes on the page when you're composing, and there also has to be a reason why it stays on the page, and that there has to be an intention to everything within a composition. And that particular notion to this day is something that I refer to as intentionality. And it was just a profound lesson, and it just kind of seared itself into my mind at a really young age. To this day, it remains at the core of my compositional works, and it's definitely something that I pass on to my students. Forever grateful to her for that kind of wisdom, and for her kindness in spending time with us. And she also wrote a really lovely letter of recommendation for me when I was applying for colleges, and it got me a scholarship to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I was able to attend that school and graduate with a degree from it. So I'm just forever grateful to Toshiko for all that. Let's talk about the tune itself, Intentionality. When I think of Toshiko's playing and writing, I think of her adventurousness. For all you musicians out there, just to show you a little bit under the hood on this piece, I wanted to experiment with an unusual blues form. Blues form is usually about 12 bars. This particular main tune is actually comprised of 2 16-bar blues that are back to back, and they have 2 unique melodies, and they're in 2 different keys. And it's super challenging. The typical blues progressions, like I mentioned, are 12 bars, so the trick is really to stretch the form and still make it feel natural. So outside of experimenting with this unusual blues form, I also wanted to be a little deceptive, or actually not a little, a lot deceptive harmonically, as far as the chords I was using. The goal in the piece was to keep the listener guessing by modulating to various key centers. At the same time, I still wanted to craft the chord progression in a way that would keep it super interesting and connected from one chord to the other while still sounding bluesy. It still had to feel like I was easing you through a journey without necessarily giving it away. And to make this sort of deceptive harmony kind of approach, I used a typical jazz approach that we call tritone substitution, and it borrows from similar chords from key centers a tritone away. This is definitely nerdy music talk, so for those of you that aren't musicians, you'll just hear it sound like it's going a little strange. So an example would be a key of B flat might be the original key, but a tritone away from that is the key of E, which is a great guitar key. B flat's a great brass key. E flat a tritone away from E flat would be the key of A. So it's like E flat's a great brass key, but A is a better guitar key. So it's not necessarily a brass versus guitar thing, but for those of you that play those instruments, you'll find it's a lot more comfortable to play within certain keys. But when I'm borrowing from these two different key centers, the progression can sometimes feel like it's going in completely different directions. But there is a relationship between this particular idea of key centers being a tritone away in jazz. With careful manipulation, as I was working through this, I was able to create this harmonic progression, and it gradually leads the listener from one key to the next in a way that seems almost imperceptible. And then also with this arrangement, I wanted to mix a lot of traditional big band components. One would be like having the band trade 4-bar phrases with the drum solo. So the band would play like a 4-bar, everybody playing, we call it 2D, meaning everybody together, like a section for 4 bars where it's like big and exciting, and then there'd be a drum solo for 4 bars, and then the band would play something for 4 bars, and the drum would go back and forth. So it's called trading fours. And so I did some traditional big band kind of components like that. But then I would make more unusual decisions. Like this whole piece starts not with the tune itself, which is typical kind of a jazz approach. It starts with a bass solo of all things, and I don't think it's because I'm a bass player, but it was just something that kind of hit me as a super deceptive idea, where from the point of view of the audience as a listener, it starts off with this bass player soloing, and it gives you the sense of you're not really sure what's going to happen next, which really spoke to my intention of what I wanted to create here. Hence that intentionality kind of title. Doing things like adding background lines, little counter lines and things behind the solos, another kind of common practice, but I consciously made an effort to only place these kinds of support elements in locations where it felt absolutely right for what I was doing in the piece. And I believe the end result's a solid and intentional arrangement that feels deeply satisfying to me, and I really hope you like it, and I'll play a couple of excerpts here.